My name's Rob Wolfe, and I actually collect antique motorcycles. And
Brian is one of those guys that has gone beyond just the picking part of this business. He's actually researching the history of pieces.
Most people think they know Robbie Wolfe, but they only saw a fraction of his life. On American Pickers, he was the easygoing brother, popping in for deals and laughs. Off camera, he was building something very different. A business, a family, and a life that had been running quietly for decades. So what was Robbie Wolfe really doing while millions were watching him on TV? And how did he manage two completely different careers at the same time? Join us as we uncover the real story of Robbie Wolfe and the life the cameras never showed. Born to a picker's family. Robbie was 8 years old when he started pulling old bicycles out of neighbors' trash, cleaning them up and selling them. He did not have a business plan, but he had a grandfather, William Wolfe, on the south side of Chicago, who collected everything from toilets to doors to furniture and resold it. William was the first person to give Robbie solid advice on life, one he carried for the rest of his life. No matter what you are buying or what is given to you, always appreciate it. You will never know how long you will have it. That philosophy, absorbed at 8 years old from a man selling second-hand toilets in Chicago, became the foundation of a career that would eventually land Robbie on national television. Mike was doing the same thing at a slightly younger age, and the two brothers would pick through places together as teenagers, rummaging through places that most of their peers walked past without a second glance. But here is where their paths start to diverge in a way that most people who only know Robbie from the television show have never fully understood. Mike made picking his entire world. He built his identity around it, eventually opening antique archaeology in LeClaire, Iowa, pitching a television show to networks for 5 years, and ultimately launching one of the History Channel's biggest hits. Robbie went in a completely different direction. He was going to be a rock star. Both brothers grew up picking together. One became the face of the most famous antique show in television history. The other went to Los Angeles in the 1980s to pursue a music career while quietly building something entirely different back in Iowa. So, what was the music actually like? And why does almost nobody who watches American Pickers know this chapter of his life existed? The rock and roll years nobody talks about. In the 1980s, Robbie Wolfe was not in Iowa turning over old barns. He was in Los Angeles performing in clubs, chasing the specific dream that brought thousands of young men and women from the Midwest to Southern California every year during that particular decade. The music scene in Los Angeles in the 1980s was one of the most competitive environments in American entertainment. And Robbie threw himself into it with the same energy he brought to everything else. He performed. He worked at it. He believed it was where his life was heading. It did not work out the way he hoped. The music career peaked with Los Angeles club performances and did not develop further. He has been honest about this in interviews, describing the decision to walk away from the music path as a practical one made after recognizing that the career was not going to build itself into something sustainable. He did not frame it as a failure in any of the accounts he has given publicly. He framed it as a pivot. Music taught him things, gave him experiences, shaped who he was, and then he moved on. What is particularly interesting about the music chapter is the timing of what came next. He returned from Los Angeles, married Melanie, and within the same period, launched the landscaping company that would sustain his family for the next 3 decades. He did not come home defeated and drift into something convenient. He came home and deliberately built something. R.J. Wolfe and Sons was launched in the early 1990s, originally operating under the Lawn Doctor franchise before Robbie converted it into his own independent company. The House profile for the business describes him as having been in the landscape business for over 22 years and having serviced hundreds of customers across the Quad Cities metropolitan area. The company offered landscape design, outdoor living spaces, patios, driveways, retaining walls, water features, pools, decks, concrete, outdoor lighting, turf installation, and snow removal. It was not a one-man lawn mowing operation. It was a full-service landscaping and hardscaping business that grew into a genuine local enterprise. And Robbie was running it, while also, quietly, showing up on national television. At exactly the same time, his younger brother was pitching a television show to every network in America. When American Pickers finally launched in 2010, Robbie was already running 2 parallel lives. What did that actually look like from the inside? Hidden in plain sight, American Pickers premiered on the History Channel on January 18, 2010. Mike Wolfe and Frank Fritz were the 2 central figures. Robbie appeared from the very beginning, making his first appearance in an episode called Big Bear that aired in the show's early run, but he was a guest rather than a regular cast member. He would show up for specific picks, bring his energy and his knowledge, and then disappear back to his life in Davenport. For most viewers, he was a recurring face without a full story attached to him. What the cameras did not follow was what happened when Robbie went home. He was going back to R.J. Wolfe & Sons, managing crews, bidding on landscaping jobs, servicing hundreds of clients across the Quad Cities, and handling the administrative and operational demands of a business that had been running for over 2 decades. He was also building his own collection, outside the show, of old Americana, vintage cars, advertising memorabilia, and anything else that caught his eye. Robbie describes his personal picking philosophy as fundamentally different from a pure investment mindset. His grandfather had told him to always appreciate what he had, regardless of how long he had it. Robbie applied that directly. If something intrigued him, he bought it, regardless of its resale value, knowing that if he loved it, someone else probably would too. Mike has spoken about his brother in terms that describe someone who operates at an intensity that even a man running one of cable television's most successful shows finds difficult to keep up with. "He's always wearing me out," Mike told Vegas film critic in one interview. "He's always on a pick, or he's at a soccer game, or he's running another business that he has. He's got way more energy than I do." The picture Mike paints is of a man who does not recognize the idea of downtime in any conventional sense. Robbie was either landscaping, picking, or at one of his daughter's soccer games, managing the business he had built over decades, or occasionally appearing on national television. All of those things were happening simultaneously, and most of the television audience had no idea about most of them. He appeared in over 55 episodes of the show across more than a decade of guest appearances before becoming a full-time cast member. 55 episodes across 12 years of occasional appearances is itself a significant commitment alongside a full-time business operation. The man was not simply waiting by the phone for Mike to call with a filming date. He had an entire other professional existence that was ticking along in parallel, and the 2 sides of his life rarely overlapped in the public eye. Then, in 2021, everything changed. Frank Fritz left the show, and Robbie Wolfe stepped out of the shadows for the first time in his career. But how did that go? The hidden life becomes the public one. Frank Fritz had been Mike Wolfe's co-host for 21 seasons of American Pickers. The 2 men had known each other since childhood, growing up as friends in the same Iowa community that produced the show. Their on-screen dynamic was built on decades of genuine shared history. Mike, the enthusiastic deal-maker, and Frank, the more cautious evaluator, both knowledgeable about the antiques they were hunting. The audience loved them together, and to them, no one could replace Frank. Then, midway through season 21, Fritz was not on the show. The network and Mike did not address his absence directly at the time. Fritz had gone through back surgery and needed recovery time, and when he was ready to return, he was not invited back. Frank spoke publicly about this in an interview with The Sun in 2021, saying that Mike had not spoken to him in 2 years and that he had no idea what was happening with the show. The departure became a significant public controversy, with large numbers of the show's loyal fan base expressing strong feelings about what had happened. Some of those feelings transferred to Robbie when he stepped in as the full-time co-host, with a vocal section of the audience arguing that they were watching a family favor rather than a genuine replacement. Some fans organized boycotts of the show and petitioned History Channel to bring Frank back. The criticism was sharp and specific. Robbie was accused of benefiting from a situation engineered to push out a beloved co-host, and the optics of Mike's own brother stepping into the vacancy made it easy for critics to construct a particular narrative about what had happened and why. Robbie handled the controversy the way he appears to handle most things, by focusing on the work. He opened United Service Motors, his antique shop in downtown Davenport, in March 2021. The building had been constructed in 1939 as an automotive building, and Robbie bought it for $200,000 and spent an additional $25,000 renovating the roof and updating the plumbing and electrical systems. He posted on Instagram about the garage door coming together and expressed his love for the building's history. The shop was filled with advertising signs, photographs, gas pumps, cars, motorcycles, and anything with an engine. He was not retreating from the public controversy. He was building, which is the only response he has ever appeared to know how to give to difficulty. He also navigated the Frank Fritz situation with more grace than the public narrative allowed him credit for. When Fritz suffered a stroke in July 2022, Robbie posted on Instagram asking his followers to keep Frank in their thoughts and prayers, and saying he was improving every day. The post was genuine and visible. He received criticism, even for that, from fans who noted that he had been seen at the Bix 7 road race in Davenport a couple of weeks later, partying with Elvis impersonators. Frank Fritz passed away in September 2024 at the age of 60. The controversy that surrounded Robbie's arrival as co-host is now part of the show's permanent history. What is less discussed is the full scale of what Robbie had built across both careers by the time that chapter opened. So what does the complete picture of his financial and professional life actually look like? The $600,000 portfolio nobody was counting. Robbie Wolfe is not a wealthy man in the way that his brother Mike, with an estimated net worth of $13 million, is. But what he has built across 3 decades of running parallel careers is considerably more substantial than most people who watch him on American Pickers would expect. The property portfolio alone tells a significant story. In 2017, he purchased a primary residence for $335,000. By recent estimates, that property had appreciated to approximately $477,000. In 2020, he bought a 6-acre plot of land for $80,000. In 2021, he purchased United Service Motors for $200,000 and put an additional $25,000 into renovations. The total property portfolio adds up to over $600,000 in real estate assets, accumulated across a career that most of the American Pickers audience thought was a hobby that sat alongside Mike's main show. R.J. Wolfe and Sons, the landscaping company he built from the ground up in the early 1990s, has been the engine of much of this. A landscaping business that has been running for over 22 years, serving hundreds of clients across one of Iowa's busiest metropolitan areas, is not an incidental side project. It is a real business with real employees, real operational complexity, and real revenue. Robbie has described the satisfaction it gives him in terms that echo what he says about picking. He loves seeing the finished product and the client's face when they see what has been accomplished with their property. "We leave a signature on all the properties we create," he said in the company's official business profile. "It is a great feeling to know that our hard work will be there for years to come." That is the language of a craftsman, not a person running a business because he needed something to fill the time between television appearances. The antique side of his professional life adds another layer. United Service Motors in Davenport is a working shop, not a vanity project. He is buying, restoring, and selling vintage cars, advertising memorabilia, neon signs, gas pumps, and Americana items through both the physical shop and his personal website. His Instagram account, run under the handle RJ Wolfe Picker, gives followers a direct window into the buying and selling he does independently of the television show. The Moline sign purchase in 2025 for over $13,000, tied to his Iowa heritage, demonstrated that he is operating at a price point that reflects genuine expertise rather than casual interest. This is a man who has been evaluating the value of old objects since he was 8 years old, pulling bicycles out of the garbage. The television show gave him an audience for that knowledge. The knowledge existed long before the audience did. His estimated net worth of approximately $2 million, as of recent reports, reflects the combined output of 3 decades of 2 parallel careers and a television presence that grew from occasional guest to full-time co-host across 12 years. $2 million is not a spectacular figure in the context of the entertainment industry's wealth. In the context of a man from Bettendorf, Iowa, who played music in Los Angeles clubs in the 1980s, came home and built a landscaping company, appeared on television when his brother called, raised 5 children, stayed married for 35 years, and built a property portfolio, while most of the audience assumed he was simply tagging along on Mike's adventures, $2 million is the result of someone who never stopped working. So, who is Robbie Wolfe at 65? What does the man look like when you put all the pieces together? The man behind the double career. Robbie Wolfe has been married to Melanie for 35 years. They got together during or shortly after his music years in Los Angeles, and the marriage has been the constant through everything that came after. Robbie has spoken about Melanie with consistent warmth and a specific kind of grateful affection. Her rule, which he has quoted publicly on multiple occasions, is both practical and perfectly captures the dynamic of their life together. You can fill up as many buildings as you want. Just do not bring that stuff home. They have 5 children together, a son named Risa and 4 daughters. His daughter Sunny's 15th birthday in January 2017 generated one of his most shared Instagram posts, where he wrote that she would always be his little girl. His Valentine's Day 2018 post featured a photograph of Melanie and 3 of his daughters with a message to his 4 beautiful ladies. The family life that comes through his social media is specific and genuine, rather than performative. His son Risa shares his father's enthusiasm for cars and has joined Robbie on picking trips, getting his hands on vehicles that most young car enthusiasts could only dream about. His daughters play soccer, and Robbie is the kind of father who goes to the games. His mother Rita, who gave him and Mike the freedom to explore that launched both of their careers, appeared in 2 episodes of American Pickers in 2016, completing a loop that started with a junker grandfather in Chicago and a mother who let her sons root through the neighbor's rubbish. At 65, Robbie describes the picking life in language that has not changed much since he was a child. People throw away untold history every day. He finds joy in restoring what was once part of someone else's life story. He learned from his grandfather to appreciate what he had without worrying about how long he would have it. He built 2 careers out of that philosophy, and 35 years into the marriage and 65 years into the life, he is still doing it. Did you know about Robbie's landscaping business and his music career before watching this video? And do you think he deserves more credit than he gets as a co-host on American Pickers? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.